Okay, good evening, everybody. I think we're live, and I think everything is as it should be. Hello, welcome to this evening's event. I've got multi screens on the go here to try and make sure we are live. We've got our webinar is on the go, Zoom webinar, so we've got people involved here. We've got some participants with us already. So hello and welcome to you guys. We are also live on Facebook as well. So we're just going to give things a minute or two to kind of get settled in, get people online and watching. Whilst I manage my screens a minute, smooth as you like, and yeah. So welcome. I'll introduce myself first before we get cracking, and do a little bit of housekeeping. My name's Charlotte. And I work on the Stand for Nature Wales project for North Wales Wildlife Trust, and this event this evening is all about Stand for Nature Wales project, finding out more about what we're up to, basically. This exciting youth-led project on Anglesey focused on climate change solutions. So more on that shortly, and whilst we're allowing some time for people to log on, I can see we've got more people watching, so that's good. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So we are live on Zoom webinar, which some of you are coming from, and live on Facebook. I'm going to try my best to monitor the chats on the webinar and the comments on the Facebook feed as well. So please feel free to use those things to talk to us. We want to try and keep it interactive and hear from those of you who are watching. It'd be great to know who is tuned in, why you're with us this evening. Perhaps this event has gripped your attention for a specific reason and you're keen to find out more. So do get in touch with us, do comment, and we'll keep an eye on those coming in. So the plans for the next hour, we're here with you till 7. We're going to hear from the other two members of staff working on the project in North Wales Wildlife Trust, a little bit more about sort of the wider project, and then what we're up to on Anglesey. And we've also got 2 young people with us as well to talk a little bit more about their involvement on the project. So we're going to chat about that. We're going to chat about some sort of climate change solutions, which is what the project's all about. And we've got time for any questions from you guys watching at home as well. So I think we can get started. I think we've got people tuned in. I'm going to first of all hand over to Chris. So Chris Baker is our People and Wildlife Manager, and he's managing this project. So he's going to talk to you guys a little bit more about the project. I'm going to mute. I'm going to turn my camera off, have a little look at the chat whilst Chris talks to you guys. Over to you, Chris.
Great, thanks, Charlotte, and good evening, everybody. It's really exciting to be able to join the event, the debate this evening. My name's Chris, and I'm the People and Wildlife Manager at North Wales Wildlife Trust. And so my role is I sort of support and oversee all of the community engagement, public engagement, and educational projects that the trust is involved with. But a big part of my work is leading on our youth development projects, and Stand for Nature Wales is the newest, kind of most exciting project that we have in this respect. Excitingly for us, this is the first time that all of the wildlife trusts across Wales are combining forces to lead on a project like this. And we're using the experience that we in North Wales Wildlife Trust have from leading the Old Wild Coast project over the past 4 years, which was our previous youth development project, to act as a bit of a template, really. So we're the lead partner. So it's fantastic to be in a position where those of us who work in this field in North Wales are able to sort of be the pioneers, really, and to lead on something like this for the trusts, the wildlife trusts right across Wales. So I'll just give you a little bit of background on the project and kind of an overview of what we're trying to achieve over the next few years. So Stand for Nature Wales is a pan-Wales youth-led community climate action project, which is being funded by the National Lottery Community Fund. It's going to be 3.5 years long in total, and it was launched earlier this year with the overarching aim of creating a climate and conservation conscious Wales, where empowered young people drive changing behaviours. And we aim to achieve a Wales richer in wildlife, where habitats and landscapes capture more greenhouse gases, and where young people aged 9 to 24 influence their peers and communities to take positive action to tackle climate change. So in order to do this, we're going to be focusing our activities in 5 contrasting communities throughout Wales, each one varying in its awareness of climate change and its predicted effects on the local area and beyond. So here in North Wales, we're going to be working with communities on Anglesey, and then we have Montgomeryshire Wildlife Trust and Radnorshire Wildlife Trust joining forces in North Powys to create a community around the Newtown area. Then out west, we've got Coastal Ceredigion, and that's the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales. So they're going to be covering Cardigan Bay and the area around Aberystwyth. And then down in South Wales, we've got the South Wales Valleys being delivered by Gwent Wildlife Trust, and then the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales and Gwent combining forces to cover the area of Newport and Cardiff. So everything from the very coastal to the very rural, and the very agriculture based to the very urbanised. So covering the whole range of sort of geographical areas, really. We want to instill the principles of sustainable development, climate change mitigation or adaptation, and an attitude of think globally and act locally in young people across Wales, recognising that varying our approach according to local needs and leadership is key. Just as no single solution is the silver bullet to solving climate change across the world, so reducing the carbon footprint of our communities in settings all over Wales will also require a multi-pronged approach within this single project. Whilst the Wildlife Trust's specialty is wildlife and environmental conservation, and that will be at the heart of the project, we will work in partnership with other organisations to take a holistic, whole system approach to climate change action as well. The project will work with Wales's young people to identify and develop their concerns about climate change, understand their motivations for change making within their local community, and empower them to take action to reduce the carbon footprint of their communities, co-designing and leading on the implementation of local environmental improvement projects, and coming together to forge a nation's young voice. We recognise that the catalyst for change is well within the grasp of young people, through increasing both their understanding of our environment's ability to store greenhouse gases and their ability to use and promote nature-based solutions to protect humanity and the natural world alike. These practical, low-risk interventions have the potential to provide adaptation to climate change alongside mitigation as ecosystem restoration, green infrastructure and land management changes. So given that I've kind of given that overview of the whole project, I'm now going to introduce our Youth Engagement Officer, Andy O'Callaghan, who's going to tell you a little bit more about what that means for the project specifically on Anglesey. Andy, over to you.
Hello everyone, thank you Chris, and croeso chi gyd yma heno hefyd, like welcome again to all of you here tonight. I'm Andy, as Chris said, I'm the Youth Engagement Officer on the Stand for Nature Wales project on Anglesey. And I've got a very specific role really within this project of, as you might think, engaging young people, but also engaging other organisations with the project, our aims and our goals, and essentially to try and bring as many people and organisations together to try and achieve the aims that we're sort of setting out to do on Anglesey. Which is, as Chris has mentioned before, a more climate conscientious young people, a group of young people, communities that understand the climate crisis and communities that know how they can be active in trying to combat a global issue on a local level, and young people leading the way on being that sort of driving force of helping communities and people do better at home, and sort of helping people understand how they can do stuff on Anglesey more locally. So it's a big job that we've got. We've got 3.5 years to do something absolutely massive across the whole of Wales, but particularly sort of in our local communities as well. Because one of the main things that we learned from Arwell Coast really is that it takes time to build relationships with people, with organisations, with young people. And thankfully, because we have done Arwell Coast on Anglesey before, we have those relationships in place to try and basically hit the ground running with setting up these various projects with young people on Anglesey. And that is essentially what I've been doing over the last couple of months, and what I'm aiming to do over the next few months as well, through setting up something we call community hubs. So there's a lot of schools in Anglesey. There's 5 high schools in total and a lot more primary schools. But there's 5 high schools in Anglesey who have lots of green space around them, and a few sort of old garden spaces which haven't really been used too much. So what I've been doing recently is to try and re-establish these green areas as community hubs, where we can bring community members from like the local area and further, and young people together to learn about things like food miles, learn how to garden in a carbon neutral or even carbon negative way, teach people how to compost at home, teach people how to make leaf mold and green manure, all sorts of things really. Hopefully these areas will develop into. But I've been developing these hubs with these schools, and bringing in organisations locally to sort of help develop these areas, so that we've got a base, essentially, a base of operation that we can help give young people a space to teach other people about nature, wildlife and the climate crisis, but also to show people what they can do at home, to be a little bit more of the solution as opposed to the problem. It's all really exciting stuff, really, and stuff that we can't wait to sort of really hit the ground going with at the moment. Because really at this time, it's about establishing the garden areas, so that the raised beds are in place, for example, the compost bins are built, young people know what's going on, before sort of we next year start bringing in community members, hopefully post-COVID as well, actually. We'll get to start bringing in community members to help out on site. And we'll have a situation where we've got groups of young people from schools and from our forum, who you'll meet a little bit later on, who will lead like activities and events on these sites to really drive that message home. So yeah, my aspiration on this project essentially is that everyone on Anglesey has at least heard of it, but then a lot more people on Anglesey are listening to young people that are saying these messages of, you know, a climate conscientious island, and taking them on board at home, really. So ambitious to do in 3.5 years, and something that will develop over time as we move forward, I'm sure, as well. But yeah, hopefully sort of as we go through on to, like, after tonight, after you've heard about the project and what sort of things me and Charlotte are up to, and Chris, and sort of further as well actually across Wales, you can get in contact with us and help us change Anglesey to be a more climate conscientious island. All very exciting stuff, and stuff that I could talk about for hours, but something that I'm going to have to stop there about, because I think I've already probably gone over my time, and to pass back to Charlotte to explain, what she's been doing on the project more recently and what she's got planned doing as well. So Charlotte, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, super exciting stuff that we're doing, and so as previously mentioned, I'm the youth development officer on the project, and I'm sort of going to be working on the ground, leading with the practical activities and events. So Andy's obviously been really busy making connections in the communities, and whilst we're kind of waiting for those connections to be established, ready for me to kind of swoop in and lead with all the practical stuff on the ground, I've been focusing more recently on working more closely with the young people that we've got on our youth forum. So the forum that we have was established during our previous youth project called Our Wild Coast, which you may have heard of, and which Andy established because Anglesey was his area during that last project. So credit to Andy for setting up this brilliant forum that we have got, that are kind of like central now to our work with Stand for Nature Wales. So the forum, they call themselves Morn Gwyrdd. If you're not a Welsh speaker, that translates as Green Anglesey. And under that guise, the forum, they've run various events and campaigns over the last few years on our previous project, and are now well underway taking action on the new project as well. So whilst we're kind of waiting for the community connections to be established, I've been helping our young people to boost their own knowledge about the climate crisis, and helping them to consider how we communicate messages about climate change and solutions to the public, which is something that's really important to kind of do sensitively and do well. So we've been working on that, and I've been supporting them to develop some events. Because this is ultimately a youth-led project, the focus is on the young people coming up with the ideas and enabling them to realise those ideas. So with that, we've got a series of online events that we're working on. So the forum actually ran a really successful debate earlier this year on the insect apocalypse, that's available to watch on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And following that success, they asked if they could run more debates. They wanted to run a series of debates throughout this year on a variety of kind of hot topics. So they've done their first one already, which was on climate change responsibilities. They went big for the first one. It was a great success. That is also available on YouTube. I'll be posting the link to that shortly in the chat, both on Facebook and on the webinar as well. So you can go and check that out. And we're in the process at the minute of organising the next debate, which will be on the topic of wilding. That's going to be happening on Wednesday, the 21st of July, 6 to 7:30. Keep an eye out on our events page and our socials for that listing. It's coming online hopefully by the end of this week. We've been delayed a little bit, but it will be advertised. We'll tell you guys about it. So as well as the online events, there are more debates coming up later in the year, more online events coming up. We're not just online, believe it or not, we're actually getting ready to head out into the real world to do some face-to-face public engagement stuff this summer, which is really exciting. The world has become far too online for us outdoorsy folks liking over the last 18 months or so. We're heading outside, and the forum have been working really hard to develop like a pop-up event to talk to people about climate change and to offer some really positive, easy solutions that people can try to do in their own personal lives to be a part of positive change in tackling the climate and nature emergencies. So we're actually giving this event its first run out this weekend on Saturday afternoon, 2 till 4. We will be set up in the car park at our Bangor office. So if you're around and want to come and chat with some of the brilliant young people, it'd be really lovely to have some people come along and see this event that they've kind of developed. We've also got dates coming up over the summer at Breakwater Park in Holyhead, and a few dates at Anglesey Sea Zoo as well. The aim is to be able to roll out this event anywhere on Anglesey over the coming months to help spread the word about the project and the sort of can-do attitude to tackling climate change and helping wildlife. So that is a whistle-stop tour of what me and Andy have been spending our time on since we joined the project at the beginning of April. Enough from us staff. We want to hear from the young people, because the young people is exactly why we are doing this project. So we've got Tanith and Emily joining us this evening. So we'll do introductions, find out a little bit more about them. And we've also got some pre-recorded stuff from some forum members that couldn't be here this evening. So we'll introduce Tanith and Emily, we'll watch some pre-recorded videos, and then we're going to chat in a bit more detail about some of the climate change solutions that the young people are really interested in. So, Tanith, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, as if by magic she appears.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
No worries.
So, do you want to explain a little bit about how and why you've become part of this project?
So I'm actually not a local to Bangor, but I am a student at the university. So I wasn't too sure what was going on. So I'm quite new to the forum. My friend Megan, who isn't here sadly this evening, introduced me to it, and I was very intrigued. And so this project is very exciting because I'm studying zoology, so I'm very much into animals and protecting them and conservation. And climate change is, as we all know, a very prevalent issue, which as a young person feels quite overwhelming. And so I guess working as a forum and being active in thinking of ways that we could tackle local issues was very exciting. So I just sort of wanted to get on board and see how I could help out locally, which was very exciting.
Amazing. And it's great to have you on board. I've actually only met Tanith once face to face. That's how much online stuff we've been doing lately. We finally had a forum walk recently, and we actually got to meet and got to talk in real life, which is great. So now that you are on board, and it is wonderful to have you on board, what are your personal hopes for your time on the project with us?
I think it'll be quite nice to see some, like, I guess, progression and sort of ultimately help inspire the local community and sort of see that positive like sort of outcome from the little stuff that we do, whether that be planting trees or helping with litter picks. It's really, I guess, as Chris was saying, it's like a catalyst effect. Like it's sort of, you inspire the next generation and the next generation. So I think personally it would be quite nice just to inspire as many people and just, I don't know, build more awareness to sort of the little things which really do make a big difference. So
absolutely. Amazing. That's great. Thank you so much. You can disappear briefly if you like, or we have a chat with Emily. Emily, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. So yes, thank you for joining us this evening. Now you've got a slightly longer history with North Wales Wildlife Trust than Tanith does. Do you want to give us like a brief rundown of how you've come to be involved in Stand for Nature Wales?
Yeah, of course. So I was sort of inducted into the Wildlife Trust's youth forum through the traineeship for a couple of years ago that was run by Our World Coast. And the traineeship was for conservation rangers. So at the time I was doing my zoology degree, and I just really needed some vocational experience to see what it was like working and engaging the public with conservation matters and the environment. So that traineeship was fantastic. And then they encouraged me to join this youth forum where we make action happen. And then after that, I was sort of inducted as the young trustee for the North Wales Wildlife Trust Council, which is quite a new position for most of the North Wales Wildlife Trust and charities in the UK. That's really innovative for them to do, which is wonderful, having our young people's forum voice at these council meetings as well.
Amazing. It's so good to have you on board with Stand for Nature Wales and for you to kind of continue your journey with the trust. What are your personal hopes for your time on this project?
I think just to make a meaningful connection to local people, to empower them about climate action and the nature of recovery, and really engage people at their level of education and to apply our knowledge and skills, because quite a lot of us currently in the forum are degree level or graduate student. We'd just love to induct more younger college level people to share our experience, which might not be accessible for people all over Anglesey.
Amazing. That's great. It's so great to have you guys with us to kind of like live chat about the project this evening. We're going to come back to you and Tanith very shortly. I have got a pre-recorded set of little video clips from 3 of our other forum members who couldn't be with us here this evening to just introduce themselves, just so that you've kind of got a flavour of the different types of people on the project. So let me share my screen. Hang on a second. Smooth as you like. Okay. Hopefully.
I'm Michelle, I'm a master research student and I am on the project because I believe in protecting the wildlife. One of the major contributions to extinction is climate change. I hope to gain more experience working in an environmental sector and interacting with new and interesting people. I would like to help promote easier access to greener transport, reintroduction of animals back into their natural habitats, and also helping people and myself make smaller steps to becoming more sustainable in our everyday life.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan and I'm a member of the Morngwyrdd Youth Forum and now I'm a member of Stand for Nature Wales. I'm really sorry I can't be with you tonight, so I thought I'd send you in a little video letting you know why I'm on the project. I've been volunteering with the Trust since 2017 and have had some amazing opportunities. I've had the chance to work with and inspire young people on the Our World Coast project. I've learned and actively done practical conservation through volunteering with the Trust and on the Trust's youth traineeship in 2019. And along with other youth forum members have had a chance to do some amazing things as part of Morngwyrdd. I don't think I could give any of that up anytime soon, so I hope that we're going to be doing much more of this on the new project. I also hope on a more personal level that I'll be able to gain some really valuable skills that will go on to help me in my future career. And most importantly, I hope that we'll be able to make a positive impact in terms of climate change, nature, and the community on Anglesey. I think I'm most looking forward to having the chance to engage with local landowners, council members, and community members as a way of tackling climate change, as I think our efforts as the Trust might be a little bit futile if we don't have those parties on board and actively involved in what we're doing. We've done a little bit of this already, as we've started making plans for a community garden on Anglesey, which is really, really exciting and takes a lot of inspiration from the previous project, Our World Coast, where the main aim was to connect the community to nature. I think this is something that has been ingrained in my values as an environmentalist, and is something that I didn't really appreciate in the past, but kind of from my journey with Wildlife Trust, learning from our project leads and volunteering with them, I think I've learned that as someone who is incredibly passionate about nature, as someone who loves being outdoors in nature and being around it, it's my job as someone who's already there, put energy into helping others who aren't as connected to nature to get there. And that is something that I'm going to work towards during this project. And it's something that I'm really excited to start doing. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm part of the Stand for Nature Wales project because I want to help ensure a positive future for our planet by learning about, implementing, and teaching others about the positive things that we can be doing to enact change. During this project, I hope to engage with local communities to help change the way that some people think about consumption, as well as to discover as many effective solutions as possible to aid with the climate crisis. I am most passionate to push ways of reducing plastic, particularly in marine environments, through the use of plastic alternatives and by thinking about the impact of what we use. I would also like to protect other habitats under threat, such as Wales's ancient woodlands.
Okay, so yeah, a little window there into some of our other incredibly passionate, inspirational and knowledgeable young people on the forum for Stand for Nature Wales. So let's bring back Emily and Tanith now to delve a little bit deeper then into kind of what your hopes are for the climate change solutions that we might be able to kind of tackle with this project. So we kind of heard in the video there some of the solutions that the other young people are really keen to champion during their time on the project. Emily, what are your sort of solutions to the climate and nature crisis that you're most passionate about trying to make happen during this project?
I think the most important impact that we could make with landowners in Anglesey is promoting regenerative land use for the way we source our food and our fresh water, moving towards carbon positive methods as well as protecting our resources for the future. Also, creating new spaces for nature in urban environments and enhancing habitat connectivity also plays a large part in that, through wildlife gardening and mini nature highways such as road verges. Really educating landowners about the benefits of restoring natural carbon sinks, such as re-wetting and protecting our wetlands and floodplains, as well as planting native forests and valleys to reduce our flooding events. Everything's connected in a really easy way that we could really implement.
You're not asking for much then?
No.
Amazing. It's good to have these big aspirations, but like you say, you know, it's easy to do these little things, and it really can grow to have big changes. Tanith, what about you? What are your sort of main passions to do with solutions?
I think personally, I think plastic is a huge issue, and there are so many alternatives out there, and I think that's probably a really nice little stepping stone to sort of work towards, you know, using reusable plastic, or like you know, you can have like stainless steel little like water bottles you can take with you, and just those little changes really do make a difference. And as Ellen also said in the little video clip, the transport, I think is something that is huge, because you know a bus can carry so many more people than all the car traffic, and it's those little projects and trying to work with different areas on Anglesey and different communities. You can, you know, maybe try and emphasize the benefits of using these better solutions, and then sort of, you know, trying to find the solution. Sorry, that's the noise. But yeah, sort of the little things.
Lots of little things all adding up. Yeah, nice, good. Thank you, Tanith. What about, I think we've got time to go to Chris and Andy as well to ask you guys what you sort of think the main solutions are that we need to be kind of trying to push on the project. Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think it's the thing that I'm most excited about with this project is the ability that we're going to have to focus all of our attention on these communities on Anglesey, and the potential that there is to reach people en masse, to demonstrate how individual actions, when added up, can actually make quite a significant difference to a landscape. Because that's quite often the question that you're faced with people when you're in the face of the ecological and the climate crisis. You know, people can feel paralyzed by it and kind of not know where to start, and have that question running through their minds of, well, what's the point of me just doing this on my patch or in my garden or whatever, because ultimately it's not going to change the global picture. But through this project on Anglesey, we've got the opportunity to really map this out now over the next 3.5 years and show how, you know, if you protect a roadside verge for wildflowers, and if you encourage people to create spaces in their gardens for pollinating plants and for bees and for birds, then actually you're not just contributing to kind of a boost in biodiversity, but actually all these things can link together and form a patchwork. And before you know it, you've got a landscape which is already 3 or 4 times better than it was at locking away carbon. I think people forget just how degraded our lived environment is. And, you know, we know that Anglesey, you know, those of us who work in conservation, we hear these facts all the time about, you know, Anglesey being one of the most deforested areas in Wales. You know, there's just hardly any tree cover left on the island. So if we can convince people to do a bit of planting in their gardens, or to create a space for wildflowers, or to plant a tree, or even if we can support people to create a community orchard or a school wildlife garden, and then suddenly you zoom out of that picture and you see this web of habitats start to kind of connect with each other, then suddenly it becomes a totally different thing. And so I mean, that's the thing that I'm most excited about. I'm not sure whether that's quite the most effective sort of thing that we'll be doing as far as natural solutions go, but I think definitely the ability that we have to communicate that with people through this project is the thing that I'm most excited about.
Andy, what about you?
I wish it started with me. I mean, absolutely, the individual impact that people have, like being able to get that message across, that, you know, Joe Blogs walking down the street can actually have a huge impact on sort of the future of the world through things that they do at home, or choices that they make when they're shopping, or things that they do in their garden, or things that they take part in their local area, is really exciting stuff as well. I suppose the other thing that I'm really sort of looking forward to as well is to seeing how far we can push it. So sort of, you know, we've got, as Tanith and Emily have said sort of from the forum, and I know other members of the forum also have, like, these massive ideas of ways that we can completely transform the entire island, all of Anglesey. It'd be really interesting to see how far we can get with energy use, or with how much people compost in their back gardens, or whatever the solution might be, sort of how far we can take it. I'm looking forward to looking back in 3 years' time and 3.5 years' time and thinking, right, well, we started at that point, now we've got to this point, like, what's the distance traveled, sort of how far have we gone, and have we gone far enough, and did we get as far as we wanted to go? Because we know sort of the climate crisis is something we're going to be tackling over the next couple of centuries, let alone sort of just the lifetime of this project. So I'm really excited to see how far we can go in 3 years, and then trying to retranslate that in the future to let's keep going with that everywhere, as well as everything that Chris said and what Tanith and Emily have said, of course, as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of similar thinking going on here, which is why we're all on this project. You know, it's we've kind of got to be all on the same track, haven't we, to achieve these solutions and reach out to the public. I think from from my sort of point of view, there's much of the same, and without echoing too much what's been said already, I do think it is that encouraging lots of small, meaningful changes among many people in many places that will act as that catalyst for bigger changes. And most importantly, picking up on something that Megan mentioned in the video, kind of connecting people with nature. And I think the sort of continuing to help people realize the intrinsic value of nature, and by connecting people to nature will ultimately kind of result in people wanting to help protect it from harm, whether that's harm through climate change, habitat destruction, whatever it is. If people realize, oh, nature makes me feel nice, oh, I like watching the birds, I like watching the flowers grow and the pollinators come and visit my flowers that I've grown in my front garden. And if people understand that, oh, that makes me feel better, then perhaps even on a selfish level, they're going to want to take care of it. And if taking care of it means eating less meat, or I don't know, volunteering, going and planting trees, or whatever it is, encouraging friends to change their behaviours, taking the bus once a week instead of driving their car, or whatever it is, all those little actions will ultimately add up. I think we're in a really exciting and privileged position in this project to be encouraging people to do these things. Now we've got some time for some questions, which, let me see if questions have come through. So Tanith and Emily, you can reappear if you'd like, if you want to answer some questions. So if you've got any questions and you are watching at home, you can send them in. We've got time to deal with a few. I'm going to start us off with our first question, which kind of links to what we've just been talking about kind of small individual actions. Can small individual actions really make a difference? Who wants to tackle that?
Yeah, I'll take a shot. So absolutely. And I think that individual action is the only way that we can achieve more connected habitats in a really fragmented landscape that we have. Like as Chris was saying, with the whole deforested Anglesey environment that we've got right now, if everyone does plant a tree in their back garden, that is 10 times better than planting 100 trees in 1 acre in the middle of nowhere. Like, how are the animals going to get there? What we really need is lots of little corridors all connecting to the existing ancient woodlands, as well as some carbon sequestering plantations. But in reality, it makes me really happy to know that people can be empowered to make a huge change. And if you've ever seen the map where people imagine what it would be like to have a whole spider web of ways that animals can connect and breed in populations again, and just see it sprawling, it's really beautiful and like a really good thing to aim for.
Amazing. Does anyone else want to chip in with can?
Yeah, don't underestimate the impact that small changes do make, because ultimately it might not feel like, buying a reusable bottle is gonna, solve the whole climate issue. It's one little step towards the bigger issue. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, really well put, Hannah. I like that. I like that viewpoint. And I think also as well, those little changes can often seem like a real inconvenience when you're making those little changes. But after a while, you forget that it's an inconvenience and it becomes the new normal, doesn't it? And then you're like, well, maybe I can try something else. I'll try another little change. And that might feel like a big deal at first. And it builds and builds, doesn't it? So yeah, nice. Great answer. Anyone else want to chip in? You guys are happy. I think Tanith and Emily have just summed that up nicely for us, haven't they? Okay, we'll have another question. We'll have another question, which perhaps one maybe directed towards Chris or Andy, perhaps. Why is climate change relevant to the Wildlife Trust? Looks like it's yours, Chris.
I think the thing that we've come to realise across, I think, the trust movement in the last few years, because there has been this slight sort of schism, really, in ecology and conservancy and conservation fields and stuff of the past few years, where there's global warming and climate issues, and then there's nature conservation. But I think as time's gone on, we've started to see in the last few years, through research and through a kind of just a widening of sort of scientific understanding, that, you know, these two things are just inextricably linked. So there's this, what we know now, that there's a sort of positive feedback loop going on. So where, you know, our actions, our greenhouse gas output and our consuming activities are leading to a warming planet, and a warming planet leads to extinction of species. But also we're seeing that biodiversity, the loss of biodiversity, also increases at an exponential rate the speed at which the planet warms up, because if you lose tree cover and if you lose species, then the natural environment loses its ability to bounce back and kind of kick in any kind of negative feedback system. So we're accelerating faster and faster and faster and faster, and this is this thing that they're referring to at the moment, this tipping point that we're coming to. If we can't come back from the precipice in the next 10 years, then we're just going to keep accelerating and there's no coming back from this. So that's why they keep referring to the next sort of 10 years up into 2030 as being kind of the critical time for this. And what we've begun to do as a movement, as wildlife trusts, and I think generally in the kind of nature conservation sector, is recognise that actually the work that we've been doing for decades all contributes towards, you know, mitigating climate change, whether just in terms of sequestration of carbon or actually mitigating against the worst impacts of climate change. So things like, you know, flooding, mitigation of flooding by rebuilding, you know, reforesting valleys and re-wetting wetlands and kind of re-establishing peat bogs, these sort of natural sponges in the uplands which just soak up so much of our water, which we've been working to restore for decades anyway, for the benefit of nature. We're now beginning to understand more than ever just how important they are in terms of as a carbon sink to help in the fight against climate change. So I think we've finally come to the point where we realise how interconnected these two crises are. And what we're now starting to do as a movement in the Wildlife Trust is evidence that and say to people, look, these things are one and the same problem. And by helping to solve one issue, you're also going to help to solve the other. And so that's why more and more projects like our Stand for Nature project are now starting to come through, these kinds of community-driven kind of grassroots sort of community projects around local climate action, but nature-based solutions. You know, so what can you do to both improve biodiversity and improve habitat for wildlife, but also mitigate against the impact of climate change?
Great, thank you, Chris, for tackling that large question. I think we'll take one more question, unless any more come in from those watching at home. And we'll come to everyone for this one because I'm interested to see how diverse a range of answers we can get. So what are your top 3 climate change solutions that people at home can try to do? I'm going to come to Tanith first and then to Emily, and then we'll move around from there. So Tanith, top 3 climate change solutions.
Oh, crikey. I mean, I've mentioned it before, but, you know, swapping out for reusable materials. I'm also going to go with quite a broad answer, but I'm going to go with research. I think, you know, spark your curiosity, maybe investigate like how to build your own compost heap and stuff like that, and sort of, I don't know, invoke your own little research into what you could do in your garden, or yeah, and I don't really know for my third one. I guess walk more, get out in nature and sort of explore and see what wonders there are and why it's so worth protecting, and, you know, how vulnerable and yet beautiful our climate is. I don't know if that helps.
I think that's very helpful. Thank you, Tanith. Emily, what are yours?
So I just have to say that if you're able to use your pocket to express what you would like to see change in the world. So if you're able to purchase climate conscious food and clothing, so try to stay away from fast fashion, try as much as possible to purchase things secondhand, try to have a clear out of your cupboard, not to move towards a less consumable way, but just definitely a more conscious way of consuming the goods that we have around us. So try to cut down on your travel miles for things that you're importing. Try to eat meat locally or from a climate conscious producer. So that's one very big ask. I think the second one is just to, dare I say, wild up your garden a little bit, let your grass grow a little bit longer, plant a tree. Because even though we talk about the climate, like the macroclimate, microclimates can really affect our health and well-being. And if you plant a lawn over tarmac, that's instantly going to be much cooler just because of the way that heat bounces off of grass instead of tarmac. So it can improve your mental health as well. And I suppose the third one, similar to Tanith, just try to be conscious in the way that you are producing waste, and if you already recycle, go for it, recycle. But if you can, vote for policies where you know that your waste is being dealt with properly, and vote for policies that you believe are going to be climate positive as well.
Simple as that. Thanks, Emily. That's amazing. I think I could listen to you guys just giving us top tips all evening. Climate change solutions. We'd solve the problem if we all listened to you guys. Right, let's go to, who wants it first, Chris or Andy? Andy's put his hand up. He wants to get in there before all the good ones are taken.
I probably should talk at some point, yeah, before Chris takes it all and answers it all completely and perfectly. I'm going to quote something that I think me and you, Charlotte, we learned it at the same time when we took part in a course recently. That it's important, I think, for your sort of at home sort of solutions is to ask the question, basically, if you're in the shop buying an apple, if you're buying a bottle of water, ask yourself the question, can I do this in a way which is a bit more friendly to the environment or to wildlife? It's easy to think that that's going to be a massive thing to do, but once you get into the habit of thinking about things a little bit more like that, then you find that it's really easy to put an onion in a paper bag in Morrison's rather than buying a net of onions for a little bit cheaper, for example. Number two is something that Emily just said as well. Vote. We live in a democracy in Wales, and it's important that we vote for policies and we vote for people who are championing environmental messaging. And more we're hearing people in power saying that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do A, B, and C. But it's important that we read manifestos, and where we have an opportunity to vote for people who are going to be a bit more environmentally conscious, that we actually do that and we use that power. Because as much as we can make as much change as we can on the ground, we also need the decision makers and the companies of the world to be making those same changes as well. It's a joint movement, and all of us need to move forward in the right direction. And then thirdly, if you haven't got a garden, or if you have got a garden, just put plants around yourself. Just if you've got a flat and you have no plants in your flat, buy an indoor plant, and start getting green things around you, because I think it's been mentioned already, mental health and well-being is important when you start delving into this world of environmentalism and climate change. It can all feel like all of a sudden the entire world's going to end tomorrow. It's not, because there's loads of amazing people like us who are going to band together and change the world for the better. But don't underestimate how much power one plant can have on you as a person, because that bit of green around you, as Tanith is doing so nicely today, right? That bit of green makes a big difference, I think, to your own sort of mental health and well-being. So yeah, buy some green. If you have a garden, plant green. If you have a flat, put some green in it.
Yes, we love plants. Good job, Andy. Thank you. Okay, Chris.
Right, so going last, I've literally there's nothing I can say now, is there? The thing that I was hanging it on was I was going to say something about sort of health and well-being stuff, but Andy's already covered that. So I'll just end up repeating what everyone else has already said very well. So mine were, my three were: walk more, just for obvious reasons, it's better for you, it's better for the planet. Buy local when you can. So just when you've got the option to consider how you're purchasing and why you're purchasing stuff, just buy local. And make space for nature, no matter how small. So that goes back to what Andy was just saying, even if you've not got a garden, if you can have a window box, or you can just have even house plants, because that'll do something for your well-being as much as it will do for the planet. We often forget we live in these built environments, and we often forget just how therapeutic it can be to have a plant nearby. Ask anybody who's gone and bought themselves a houseplant in lockdown. I think houseplant sales have gone through the roof, haven't they? Because people have realised just how important it is to have greenery in your home. So yeah, just no matter how small. Yeah.
Nice one. It kind of leaves me, and I don't know how many there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head now what hasn't been covered, and I think what I can say is remember that we can be making a difference in areas of our lives that we don't even perhaps think about. Like, for example, check out who you bank with. If they're putting funds into things like fossil fuels, can you switch to a better bank? Or who's your energy company? You could switch your energy supplier to one that provides you with energy that is from 100% renewable energy sources. So there's like so many different ways that we can actually have a really positive impact, you know, regardless of whether we've got a garden, regardless of whether we've got access to, you know, extra money in our bank accounts to spend that little bit more, like Emily said. We can do other stuff that doesn't really cost any more money, that's just changing our behaviours. And as well as voting, just contact your local politicians and contact your local councils and ask them questions, and just kind of make them aware of what you really believe the issues are. You never know, they might listen. It might be your letter, your email that they take on board and is actually that catalyst to a change of some sort. So you know, you have the power in your hands to make a lot of changes. And as well, finally, spread the message. Don't be afraid to have these conversations with your friends and with your family, because as my friends and family will certainly tell you, I talk about it and it has an effect, and they're not sick of it. They've actually started making positive changes themselves, and every now and then I get a message saying, oh, I did this today. I thought about what you said and I've started doing this instead. And so it has an effect. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Yeah, so I think good job, guys. We've managed to come up with a lot of different solutions there. So hopefully that's useful to you guys watching. Yeah, and if you've missed any of that and you're trying to like write them all down, we're going to put this recording on YouTube afterwards, so you can kind of go back through the little solutions bit and be like, oh, what were they saying again? So you can go and try all of those different things, or pick one thing and try it if it's too overwhelming. So we've got 5 minutes left to wrap things up, really. So first of all, say a big thank you to Chris and Andy for coming along, but mostly to Emily and Tanith, you know, for taking time out. I know you're really busy at the minute, and we've got loads of other events that we're in the middle of planning and using your time to do. So thank you for taking the time to come on this evening. It's, you know, it's most impactful coming from you guys. So thank you. A few last little bits then to finish off. So on the North Wales Wildlife Trust website, we haven't quite got a Stand for Nature Wales page yet, but it is coming really, really soon. And there will be loads of information on there about how to get involved in the project and joining the forum if you're a young person on Anglesey. But in the meantime, if you have been kind of particularly gripped by what we've been talking about this evening, then you can send us an email. In the chat on Facebook and on the webinar, I have posted our email addresses in there, so get in touch. And also we have got a reminder about the events that we've got coming up. So our first face-to-face event is this Saturday afternoon, 2 till 4, from the Bangor office car park. Have a little look on Google Maps, you'll find North Wales Wildlife Trust Bangor office there. We're gonna we'll be set up there Saturday afternoon, so come and see us if you're around, and just keep your eyes peeled on the events page and on our social media. We'll promote stuff as and when it's happening. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, actually, because it's been mentioned by Emily and by, I think, Megan on the video. These young people have most of our young people have joined the forum through our traineeship, which we have run the last couple of years. We're running again this summer. This is Andy's incredible traineeship baby that he has created and pushed, and it's been a huge success the last couple of years. If you are aged 60 to 24 and you live on Anglesey, you can apply to take part in our 2-week summer conservation and climate change traineeship. I've put the link in the chat. The deadline is the 12th of July, Monday the 12th of July. So get your applications in. If you think you know someone that might be interested, send it out to them and urge them to apply. I think there's 10 places available. And yeah, it's going to be a great couple of weeks in the summer to really give 10 young people a boost in the right direction to, you know, a career in conservation. So yeah, I think that's everything. I think I've shared everything that I need to share with you. So I think we'll wrap it up there. We've got 2 minutes to 7, so we're bang on time. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for watching at home, and thank you, Chris, Andy, Tanith, and Emily. We'll wrap up there. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody.